Okay, I got a short, funny one that's of absolutely no consequence whatsoever about the covering fire errata that we got. So this errata changes covering fire, and the main thing it's doing is including the targeting requirements in the declare step of covering fire. And apparently the reason they're doing this is to allow reactions such as all-out defense to be used in response to covering fire. This is pretty funny because you definitely already could use all-out defense in response to covering fire. And I think I can see the reason why someone coming later to the book and looking at these abilities in response to an FAQ might miss that. So firstly, we have to have a bit of a look at all-out defense and covering fire just to see what's going on. Where's the problem? Okay. So with covering fire, you pick a friendly unit that is not in combat to use the ability. That's all it says in the declare step. And the declare step is really important because all-out defense is used as a reaction when your opponent declares an attack ability. If you're waiting until the effect step of covering fire, then it's too late. You can't use all-out defense. Your opponent is already making you take armor saves and you've missed your window, right? You have to use it as a reaction to the declaring of covering fire, which makes sense. And at that point, and I think I might jump over here for this, you have to use all-out defense by a unit that is targeted by the attack ability. Okay, so in the declare step, covering fire doesn't talk about targeting your unit. It only talks about picking, your opponent's going to pick one of their own units, but they're not going to target one of your units. So you aren't going to be able to use all-out defense. That's why we have this errata, because it seems like, well, covering fire needs to target your unit in the declare step for you to use all-out defense in response. Pretty straightforward, except that covering fire definitely does target your units in the declare step. So if you jump over to 16.0, picking targets, right, when you're attacking, when declaring an attack ability for a unit, you must pick the target units for its attacks. So even though it doesn't say in the declare steps, the fact that covering fire is an attack ability, has the attack keyword, means that you have to declare targets for it in the declare step anyway. And because you have to declare the targets for it, that means you can use all-out defense, right? Like that's just one-on-one. It's very straightforward, but I can understand if you were writing an FAQ or something, you would go back and someone's like, can you use all-out defense in response to covering fire? You would just look at these two rules and think, oh, I guess not, because it doesn't target the ability. Oh, you are supposed to be able to. I thought I remembered writing the rules so you could. I guess we'll just fix up covering fire so it does target them. Now, there is one objection people might have. There is a slight wording distinction between covering fire here that says a unit targeted by that attack ability. And then if we look at 16.0, it's talking about picking the targets for its attacks, right? For the unit's attacks. And you might think there's a distinction between the target of the attack ability and the target of the unit's attacks. So covering fire doesn't target your unit, but when they shoot you, the unit targets you with its attacks. Right? The attacks do target you. The ability doesn't target you. And all-out defense cares about whether the ability targets you. Okay? That might be one way to interpret this. And I could understand that reasoning, except that if you go and look at other attack abilities like shoot, shoot also doesn't talk about targeting you with the ability. It only talks about targeting with the unit's attacks, right? Pick a friendly unit that does not use a run or retreat ability this turn to use this ability. Then pick one or more enemy units as the targets of that unit's attacks. It even references 16.0, so you know it's the same thing as what's happening in 16.0, right? The same, just the ordinary requirement to pick targets for your unit's attacks for attack abilities, that's what shoot makes you do. And if you can't respond to 16.0's targeting with the unit's attacks, with something like covering fire, something like all-out defense, then you can't respond to shoot with all-out defense. And fight is worded the same way. You can't respond to fight with all-out defense, if that's the logic. So the only thing that makes sense is that this 16.0, when you target an enemy unit with your attacks, that is the same thing as targeting them with the attack ability. That they're slightly different language, but they have exactly the same meaning. They refer to the same thing. You can use all-out defense against shoot, you can use all out defense against fight. And because 16.0 makes you pick targets in the declare step for your attack abilities, you can definitely use all out defense in response to covering fire before we got this errata. What's really annoying about this is that it should have been an FAQ. It should have told people, hey, no, actually, you can use all out defense in response to covering fire. Please go and read 16.0. This might be a neater solution or something, but the implication of this errata, and especially this designer's note, implies that you couldn't use it before. And that kind of annoys me. It's totally of no consequence because now we're living in the world where you can use all out defense in response to covering fire. And that's what I thought the case was all along. So it really doesn't change anything from where I am, but it is annoying that they seem to be confirming something that was definitely not true instead of just explaining how the rules are supposed to work. So I think that's kind of funny. But like I say, it's absolutely of no consequence. So just a short one, and I'll leave it there.